Hey guys, Tim Bratz here. Hey, I wanted to share a recent life experience with you and share a few lessons. Three, I think, really important life lessons that come from the loss of a life. And so I'll give you a little bit of background on this, but a very, very good friend, dear friend of mine, girlfriend, not girlfriend, but like a girl who's a friend. You get the picture, right? Like my wife's gonna start getting phone calls on this. A good female friend of mine from high school, very close, one of my top three female friends from high school. Her husband, she's a teacher. We got three beautiful little kids, 5, 7, and 10 years old. And her husband, former Marine and a police officer, passed away from a heart attack. The husband did. Passed away from a heart attack a couple weeks ago. And at the age of 38 years old. And I've been reflecting on this for like 2 weeks of that happening and everything that's come from it since then. And so I have 3 big takeaways from this life experience that I've been really heavily reflecting on that I want to share with you guys. So the first one is how grateful I am that this kind of happened on, not this situation, but my financial situation and being focused on finances was always based on, hey, I want to be able to buy a fancy car. I want to be able to live in a ridiculous house. I want to be able to take amazing vacations. And I think when people focus on their finances and they want to make a lot of money, they focus on those things that it allows them to do, but they don't focus on some of the things that are far more important than that, like a situation like this happening. An unexpected death of a friend or a family member, that when stuff like this happens, it's like, who do you look for? Who do you look to, right? Like, who's going to be able to help in that type of a scenario? And I'm incredibly thankful because I put myself in a position to be able to support, to be able to help, to be able to say, hey, what do you need? Right? Like, what can I do for you? Let me send you some money. Like, the last thing I want you worried about is stressing over money, stressing over finances. You know, like 2 blue-collar jobs and with 3 little kids, I don't care how good you are with your finances, like, it's going to be tight, you know? And the last thing she needs to be worried about is the money side of things. And she should be focused on, you know, grieving herself and also taking care of her little girls, you know? And so me being in a position, because I took care of all my finances and got my shit straight, and really, really focused on building as much wealth as possible, not for me, but so that way I can support other people, right? When they fall in situations like this, it allows you to make a bigger impact. If you're not focused on your finances, if you're not focused on building up your net worth and building up your income and your cash flow and your equity and your cash position, how can you help, right? How much assistance can you give to somebody? You can only make a little bit of an impact if you don't have that much money. But if you can go and make as much money as you possibly can in the timeline that you dedicate to your economic situation, I think we all should be driving to make as much money as humanly possible, because the more money that we make, the more impact we can make, the more that we can give, and the more that we can help other people when they come and fall on times like this, you know? And so I feel very blessed that I was able to focus on that stuff and be able to support in a way that, you know, maybe other people couldn't, or maybe other people wouldn't. But the reality is, I keep on asking myself, like, if I don't do it, who is, right? If I don't do it, then who else is gonna help? If I don't do it now, when, right? Like, what does that look like? And so I have a sense of responsibility because I put myself in this financial position in order to help as many other people as I possibly can. So that's one of the first things, is make sure that you're focused on your finances and don't feel bad about making as much money as humanly possible, because money doesn't make you good or bad. It just amplifies who you already are. And if you're already a giving soul and you're already a supportive person, you're already always trying to help other people and you know, just pay it forward all the time, then money's gonna help you do more of that. So that's number one. The second thing is, you got to get your house in order financially. You got to get your house in order from an estate planning perspective and from all the certain documents. I know it's not an exciting topic. I know it's not something a lot of people want to talk about. But I don't care how much money you have. Like, this has been all consuming on me the past 2 weeks, thinking of, dude, what if this happened to me and I passed away? Would my wife, Kate, know what to do? And so I asked her, I said, hey, Kate, if this happened to me, what would you do? I was like, who would you call? And she goes, well, what do you mean? I was like, you can't ask me. I'm asking you, I'm dead, right? Like, you can't ask me who to call or what do I mean? Like, what would you do in this situation? Well, what do you mean? Well, what do you do? Who do you call? Like, where do you go? What does that look like as far as conversations of making sure that the finances are in place, making sure the mortgage is paid, making sure insurance lines up, getting to draw on the insurance, on the life insurance policy. Like, do you know who you would call? She goes, this person? I was like, don't ask me, like, you got to tell me. And that's my fault for her not knowing exactly who to call in what situation. And so over the past week, I've been organizing all my stuff. And I already have a lot of the financial and estate planning documents done. So if you don't, make sure you contact a local attorney and get with them on putting an estate plan together. It's not that much money. It's probably gonna be $500 to $1,000, somewhere in that ballpark. And you got to put a will together. What happens to your stuff? You don't want it going to the court system, going through some probate system where a judge dictates where your stuff goes. You want to be able to say, here's where my stuff goes. So make sure you got a will. Make sure you have a power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney, and a financial power of attorney. And the fourth one's a living trust, right? Like, what happens if you are incapacitated and you can't make decisions and you're on life support? What do you want done, right? Making sure that your loved ones don't have to make that decision. You're making that decision and you're not putting that responsibility on them. So you got to sit down with an estate planning attorney as soon as possible and get with them on putting those documents together at a minimum. If you also don't have a trust, a revocable or irrevocable trust, I would sit down and spend a couple $1,000s on that, assuming you have some assets, assuming you own some property. What does that look like? What happens if you pass away and you built a big business, and who runs it, right? Who controls it? Do all the assets get sold, or do you have like a board of directors that continues running your operation? I know nobody likes to talk about this, but like, what happens if your spouse gets remarried? What happens if your spouse, if you pass away and your spouse gets remarried, and then they pass away, guess what? Their new spouse gets all of your money. Do you want the pool boy getting your money or the tennis pro, depending on which side of the coin you're on? No, nobody wants that. What happens if that other person gets your money and then they pass it on to their kids and your kids don't get any money anymore? Because that's how the traditional probate system would work. So instead, you want to make sure that if you pass away, the money stays in a trust, your spouse gets taken care of, and your kids get taken care of, regardless of what happens from a standpoint of them getting remarried or anything along those lines. And what happens if there's a mixed family and they're bringing kids over, they have new kids together, or whatever that looks like. So it's not a fun conversation, but it's a conversation you gotta have, because crazy shit like this happens, right? Nobody should have a heart attack at the age of 38 years old, but this stuff happens. So you have to be addressing it. And the final thing with getting your house in order would be, make sure you have life insurance. If you don't have life insurance, I'm not a big proponent of like whole life insurance or universal policies and all that stuff. A lot of people try to take life insurance and turn it into an investment. And if you have ridiculous amounts of cash and cash flow, there are definitely some amazing ways to kind of take that money, park it into a whole life policy, front end load it all, let it multiply over time, and it not be available to creditors, not be available to taxes or anything along those lines. That can make sense for some people. I think for most people, including the way that I do it, is I make insurance, and I have my investments, totally separated. So I have a term life insurance policy that covers me, and I got one, I think when Penelope was born, so about 7 years ago. That was a few $1 million, which is what I needed at that time. And I have another one, actually, I just got an email from my insurance agent today Drew McConaughey, shout out. If you guys need a great insurance person, hit up Drew. And I got a couple of great insurance guys in my network, so hit me up if you guys need to talk to someone on that front. But he's getting me another, I don't even know, I think it's like $7 million on top of that. And what you need to understand is depending on your situation, some insurance people make big money off of life insurance policies, especially whole life and all that stuff. And so a lot of times they push that. And your situation might need a whole life or universal life policy. I just personally prefer a term policy. So the way that I looked at it, I was told to get more insurance than I have, but I have great assets. I got a team in place. I have a lot of stability in what my net worth looks like. So I don't need, I don't know. So I have like $10 million of personal life insurance, term life insurance on me on a 20-year term, right? So I make payments into it every single year, and you can get a lot of insurance for a few $100s a year. I don't know, 500, 600, 700 bucks a year or something like that. And so it allows you now to be able to have something in place to take care of any debts, to take care of your mortgage, pay off the house, put some cash in the bank account for your spouse, and let them take that money then and then go and invest it. And so if you no longer are bringing in income and you have an active job or an active business or an active income that you're bringing in and you're no longer there to bring that money in, what does that look like for your family? So in my mind, here's why I have $10 million. It pays off all of my debts, right? Like we only, I don't know, the one car is paid off, the other one has a little bit of a note on it. Those will be paid off this year anyways. And then I have like a 3.5% interest rate on one of my houses up in Ohio and like a 4% interest rate on my other house here in South Carolina. All in all, it's like, let's call it less than $3 million of total debt on, I don't even know, $8 million of assets or something, maybe more. But if I have a $10 million life insurance policy, it pays off those assets, and now my wife and my kids own those properties free and clear without any mortgages. And then they still have another $7 million of cash. They can take that cash, invest it into something, and get, my wife has access to my business partners, and Matt Carlin, who's my COO, and Fadi Boumitri, who's my chief investment officer, and my network of people who can help her deploy that money and make a good fixed 8, 10, maybe even 12% on that money. And she'll be sitting on somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000 to $80,000 a month with all these properties owned free and clear, all of her primary residences, plus all the business assets that will be allowed, will be continuously paying down. Somebody else is managing all that stuff. But I'm able to coordinate that because I have a revocable or an irrevocable trust in place, and because I have insurance in place that's going to take care of the fam, where now they don't have to sell off my property. They can actually continue holding those apartment complexes, and my share of income and my share of wealth that comes from that keeps on going to my family, in addition to the cash chunk of life insurance that they're going to have. And the reason I got a 20-year term is because I got a 7-year-old, I have a 5-year-old, and I have a newborn on the way. 20 years from now, they'll all be out of the home. They'll all be on their own and have their own businesses, have their own jobs, have their own careers, where they're not going to be as dependent on me anymore from a financial perspective. Same thing with a lot of my properties. Over the next 20 years, I'll have my houses paid off, far before then, my primary residences, and have a lot more cash in the bank and a lot more liquidity than I have maybe right now, because we'll have more sales, we'll be growing the portfolio, have a bigger portfolio, all those other things. So we're gonna be in a much better cash flow, liquidity, and we're already in a good position, but it's like comparably to where we even are now, I couldn't imagine where we're gonna be 20 years from now, right? And so it allows us to kind of bridge that gap and me know that the family's taken care of no matter what, if I passed away tomorrow or next week or next month or next year or 10 years from now or 30 years from now. 30 years from now, we're not gonna have to worry about it, right? So I see life insurance as a way to bridge the gap until the kids are out of the house, until assets are paid off, and until you can have enough cash in your retirement accounts and in your personal bank accounts and in other assets where it puts your family in a position of stability. So that's what I would look at from a insurance standpoint. And then the third lesson that has really resonated with me it actually comes from a book by Rudy Giuliani. He has a chapter in his book that he wrote after the 9/11 attacks and stuff, and it's called "Weddings Are Optional, Funerals Are Mandatory." And what he means by that is weddings are celebrations, right? Weddings get people excited, people are happy, and whether you're there or not, they're going to have a great time. Birthday parties, all that kind of stuff, those are celebratory type of events. Rudy Giuliani went to every single funeral for every first responder who responded to the 9/11 attacks in 2001. So every funeral, he went and paid his respects. He went and showed that he was there to support those people in a time of their darkest hour. And it's a lot more important to go and support somebody from a funeral perspective when a loved one passes away than it is to attend the wedding, right? So weddings are optional, funerals are mandatory. So I actually have a flight booked right now, leaving tomorrow in order to head back to Ohio for the memorial services for my friend, to be able to go and not only support her any way that I can with resources and connections and people in order to help her navigate through all the unknowns that she's got to deal with through this, in order to try to, you can't do anything in a situation like this, but at least you can try to soften the landing a little bit. But I'm also going to bring the family up, and we're going to go and support any way that we possibly can, and show physically that we're there, not just in spirit, but we're there to help any way that we possibly can. So 3 key life lessons. One is go and make as much money as you possibly can so you can help as many people as you can. 2 is get your house in order from a financial perspective and an estate planning perspective. Contact Paul Vincent. He did a bunch of my estate planning stuff. He's a great guy, so plug him. Get your insurance in line. Well, Drew McConaughey, another great resource. And the third thing is make sure you're there, right? Weddings are optional, funerals are mandatory. Support your loved ones. Be any sort of type of shining light in the darkest times of their life, and just physically be there for them. There's not much that you can say other than just being there, and I think being there is enough in a lot of situations. So hopefully this motivates you in order to kind of go get your stuff organized, put a 1-page executive summary together for your spouse. If this happens, here's the catastrophe plan. Call this person for the trust work, call this person for insurance, call this person on the bank accounts, call this person on the retirement accounts, call these people because they handle the operations for the business. So that way your spouse, your family doesn't have to navigate that with question marks all over, right? Making sure that kind of stuff is in place softens the blow and reduces the stress in a highly stressful situation. So hopefully you got some good value out of this. Go and get that stuff in place. Appreciate you guys being here. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. I love you. If you know anybody who needs to see this, which I think everybody does, please share this. Give me some takeaways. Give me any questions that you might have in the comment section. Give the video a like, and please subscribe to our channel. We're always trying to give you as much value as we possibly can on everything based on not just real estate, but personal finance, wealth building, entrepreneurship, and lifestyle, right? And making sure that you're the best human that you could possibly be, and pay it forward and leave a big impact on this world. So appreciate you. Until next time, be your best.